The third and final Overwatch League regular season tournament is now in the history books. Like in the previous two that came before it, the Countdown Cup was a lot of fun. Along with these enjoyable games came more lessons to be learned about all 20 teams. And yes, this time I really do mean all 20. Sorry about not including Boston in the Summer Showdown. You guys have made it very clear to me that you love this series a lot, so we gotta bring it back again, of course. So let's get down to business. Here is one thing I learned about every team from the Countdown Cup tournament. The Boston Uprising. It is safe to say you are the number 20 team. I mean, what is there to even be said about this team at this point? This is now the second time in a row where they did not even get to participate in the tournament. Since they had that short resurgence when Punk was picked up, it's been nothing but pain and sadness if you're a Boston fan. This honestly might be the worst it's ever been this year. They aren't even taking maps anymore. We're at a point where they can't even take maps off the Titans, who are one of the worst teams in the Genji meta, by the way. Season 4 is what should be focused on at this point if you're Boston. There's no magic to be found this time around. They are who we thought they were. It's not even up for debate anymore. The Boston Uprising lack everything, basically. They are totally boomed in every way. Hopefully they can build something better heading into Season 4. For the sake of Boston fans, I pray they do it right next year. The Vancouver Titans. It's been a tough year. At least you have Shockwave. So yeah, the Titans were kind of put in a position to fail heading into this tournament. Having no choice but to go up against an opponent who has you on lockdown is pretty unlucky. It's also unlucky that you had to play in a meta that you aren't proficient with for a second tournament in a row. It was not a fun position to be put in. At least Shockwave did show some results again though. Even through all the bad, that guy has been a real treat to watch, and I know for a fact that Vancouver fans appreciate him being some sort of bright spot on the team even though they've struggled so much. The good news for the Titans and their fans, though, is that they probably won't have to play Genji ever again this year. There's a chance that enhances their future performances, and we get a first-hand opportunity to witness that as they have a grueling 4-game schedule in the span of 2 weeks coming up. Here's their chance to end the season on a positive note. No matter what happens, though, I can't really blame the Titans players or coaching for that matter. This team was literally thrown together mid-season. Their entire team consists of rookies, and most of these guys have no prior experience playing with each other. That's a brutal situation to be thrown into. The Houston Outlaws. You wasted an opportunity to build playoff momentum. I'm not sure how many of you were aware of this, but this was the final game for the Outlaws until the playoffs begin in September. Going out in 3-0 fashion to the Valiant is not a good look, especially when considering how close they were to beating them just 1 week prior. What on earth happened? It's like I was watching a completely different team. It's as if they treated this game like a scrim almost. Why were they messing around with so many different strategies? I understand that shakeup they tried on Numbani, but they stuck with it for way too long. And what's with all the Winston Zarya? I understand that meta is becoming a bit more popular, and you probably wanted to play something a bit more dive heavy since you've got Dante and the Sombra, but why play so much of it? Winston Zarya is a weak composition for them, and we saw that firsthand when they got outplayed by Washington a few weeks back. If you were still that weak on that composition, then why take the risk of breaking it out in such an important game? Shouldn't that be something you save for scrims? I don't get what they're really trying to do there. What I do know is that all of the curveballs they threw at the Valiant failed. After showing some solid results against them with double shield, it kind of seemed like the logical solution would be to just play that again, would it not? To me, it seemed like the Outlaws didn't take this game as seriously as they should have, which is kind of disappointing. They had a chance to get revenge and feel at least somewhat confident heading into the playoffs. I'm very interested to see how they'll do after a long break now. The Washington Justice. You showed me things I like and dislike. Okay, so I know the Justice kind of choked on that final section of Nepal against Dallas, but I honestly am not too upset with them overall. In the fights they were winning, they showcased potential. I was seeing more cohesion with their play than I'm used to. If you go back like a month, it was all about hoping Tuba would kill everything. While that game plan definitely still does heavily revolve around Tuba's play, other people appear to be alleviating some of that pressure. Take AimGod for example. He made some big plays during that match that not only kept his team in the game, but also helped them secure maps. It's like what I said with the What Is Wrong With Your Justice team video a couple of weeks ago. When AimGod gets to play as carry heroes, he pops off. And how about Stitch for another example? I would say he had an above average day compared to some of his previous performances on the Justice. He landed some nice shots on the Widow and McCree, and this Sombra was a pleasant surprise. The EMPs were pretty on point, but along with the good, there was also some bad. Besides playing horribly on that final part of Nepal, I was not very happy with Washington running ball comms. Whenever Roar played ball, the team did not look right. The Justice playing out-of-the-box compositions is usually something I'm okay with, but not with their ball comps. That ain't it, Chief. Try something else. But overall, I wouldn't say I'm super unhappy with the Justice's overall play. In my opinion, the positives slightly outweigh the negatives from that Dallas game due to their improved team play in some scenarios. The Toronto Defiant. You're still the same team. I don't know what it is with Toronto, but it feels like they've been stagnating since that little summer showdown run. Whenever I watch them, it's always the same thing. They either just barely avoid choking a game away, or they play up to their competition but still end up losing the game somehow. Their game against the Gladiators happened to be the second thing. They took advantage of the Gladiator sporadic strategy to play mirror at literally every position, but they just couldn't finish them off. They even overcame their Temple of Anubis weakness, but still fell short. The Defiant worry me. They feel much like Washington in the sense that the team needs their Genji to pop off just to keep them in the game. What is Toronto going to do now that this Genji nerf is going through? How are they going to be competitive? As if the future for Toronto already wasn't cloudy enough as it is. These next few weeks are going to be pivotal for Toronto. Let's see what they're made of. The London Spitfire. You are becoming the team I thought you'd be. Since the Countdown Cup qualifiers, London have been on a total downward trajectory. They haven't won a game in quite some time, and how they've been playing makes me believe that won't be changing anytime soon. London are quite the strange team. You wouldn't expect much from them because they are a very young and inexperienced team, but they have found ways to surprise us this year. We've seen them get a few quality wins here and there, but the issue is that we don't get that consistently. And that's the type of play I was anticipating from them heading into Season 3. It's kind of sad though. Before this recent dry spell, they'd always keep me hopeful by playing a good team close. They'd never beat said team, but keeping it close is a sign of promise, is it not? But they have such drastic lows to go along with said promise. For every game they almost beat a good team, they have 2 or 3 games where they just get rolled. It breaks my heart to witness London get 3-0'd by the Chengdu Hunters and yet almost beat Shanghai at the same time. London have steadily been getting worse since the season began. The coordination just feels so off these days. They don't play enough as a team. It's more about the individual performances with them, and that does you no good. You can't expect to be anybody if you're lacking teamwork. The coordination is practically non-existent currently. London need to look at themselves in the mirror over these next couple of weeks. Time to do some soul searching. They have to find some answers, or they're going to be watching from the sidelines when they inevitably have a very early playoff exit. The Seoul Dynasty. You might be the worst team in APAC. Obviously, you can make a strong argument for London here as well, but Seoul have been following a very similar path as of late. Neither team has won a game since the Summer Showdown and its qualifiers. It is baffling to me that Seoul can't figure it out. On paper, this team is not bad at all. They honestly have a pretty decent core, but for some reason, they aren't utilized in the right way. There is no consistent execution or team synergy. Every game is different. You never know what you're going to get. There's obviously some individual things everybody needs to work on, but I can't help but feel like this is more on the coaching more than anything else. And I'm sure a lot of you in the comment section will agree with me. Those guys don't know what they're doing. Those coaches have the tools needed to succeed, but they're not properly utilizing them. They were so close to winning that game against the Spark, too. They nearly 3-0'd them. I feel so bad for their fans. The lack of second half adjustments made all their hard work be completely meaningless. Literally because of their coaching, Seoul might be in a hopeless situation unless the meta suddenly turns more in their favor. The Guangzhou Charge. Your honeymoon phase is over. For the time being, it is safe to assume the Charge may have peaked. They had their time to shine when they won the Summer Showdown, but now the competition has caught back up to them. They aren't so dominant anymore. Teams like New York are no longer a walk in the park for them. They learned that the hard way twice in a row, too. I'll give credit where it's due, though. They made the second half adjustments in that series, and they made it a game. I mean, they really turned up the heat. Route 66 and Hanamura were fairly dominant, but once again, they fell short to New York's superior dive when the game was on the line. The Charge had such a slow start to that game too. They basically set themselves up for failure. You have to play a complete game to beat the top dogs. They've got to work on their dive comps now moving forward. Double Shield seems to be the only composition they're top tier on. Their Winston Zarya dive could really use some work, and if those experimental changes go through, then they better start grinding now before it's too late. The Guangzhou Charge are still an excellent team though, don't get me wrong, but they do have some stiff competition ahead of them. They have to learn from these experiences and just keep practicing. The Dallas Fuel. You might not be in as bad of a place as I thought. I have to give Dallas credit where it's due. I did not think they had it in them to beat anybody during this tournament. So much happened in the span of 1 week, and I thought for sure it would break their mental. But no, that wasn't the case. It wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but they still got the dub over Washington. They might not have been clean in that game, but I didn't see the look of defeat with those players at all. I saw mental fortitude. I saw grit. I saw determination. You gotta give it up to Doha. That man put on a clinic. The Genji was looking clean, even against San Francisco at times. Credit goes where it's due to Coach Young as well. He had to step up after the arrow firing, and he dealt with the pressure brilliantly. He kept his team focused enough to get that win. I'm pretty proud of Crimzo as well. If you weren't already aware, he recently found out his mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. Knowing a family member has cancer is a scary thought. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. But despite that, Crimzo gave it his all. My thoughts and prayers go out to Crimzo's mother. Let's all believe in her to make a speedy recovery and to beat this thing. The LA Gladiators. You still find ways to surprise me. This team has absolutely been one of the strangest in the league this year. Every time I think they have showed me all of their cards, they try something new and bizarre. This time they decided to play Mirror at 3 different positions in one weekend, and needless to say, it had some mixed results. From Junkrat, to Zarya, to Brig and Zen. Talk about getting max value out of your flex player. DPay loves to come up with these intricate strategies and lineups. Whether it fails or succeeds, I think we can all admit that it's pretty entertaining. But unfortunately, entertainment won't always translate into clean victories, and I think they found that out the hard way. Not only did they continue to show they are inferior compared to the top teams, but they could barely even get by Toronto. I mean, it was a real struggle. This team is as inconsistent as the lineups they run every game. A team that could be so much better just can't seem to piece it all together. As things currently stand, they are not set to go very far in the playoffs. They need to show me something during these next couple of weeks or they're done for. The Atlanta Reign. Your team is changing, but the results are still the same. Like with the Gladiators, the Reign always hit the same wall no matter what they try. You bring in Saucy after losing Baby Bay, but he honestly did no better than Erster or Edison on the Genji. They keep throwing something at the wall with their DPS hoping something will stick, but it never does. I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me when I say that DPS is probably the least of their problems. If anything, they should be putting their efforts into some of the other positions. DPS has been one of their more consistent places. I think support in particular is pretty up and down. Maybe they could eventually solve this issue if they play their new rookie flex support Iris, but that doesn't guarantee anything considering there's other issues to be resolved as well. And it goes beyond the roster. The coaching has been a big problem for a while now. The coaching staff has to step it up. Their players are capable of so much more, but they aren't trying to improve everyone hard enough, nor are they always making the correct decisions as to who to play. Like with the Gladiators, Atlanta can never get by the top dogs. They always fall short while failing to prove themselves. It has been this way all year, and I see no reason to think any differently until they prove to me otherwise. They could be setting themselves up for a disappointment in the playoffs if nothing changes soon. They'll just lose to somebody of Florida's caliber again if things stay the same. Come on, Atlanta, show me something. The Los Angeles Valiant. You're the best middle of the pack team on a good day. The Valiant find themselves in a pretty interesting position. Some would say they have already accomplished a lot this year considering how much they have surpassed expectations. Even with a roster they made on a budget, the coaching and overall synergy has transformed them into a decent team. At their peak, they can pull off an upset here and there. We saw it with the Florida Mayhem and the San Francisco Shock already. My problem is that they can't get to that level consistently. Sometimes they hinder themselves in the big games that are considered winnable. That's what happened in the Paris game for sure, and I honestly think they're going to stay this way for the time being. Well coached or not, they don't have enough star power needed to compete with the top teams. For the most part, their roster is filled with players who are either good or decent. They don't really have a lot of superstars. They don't have the greatness needed to take it to the next level. And that's why they'll always be the little brother of teams like San Francisco, Philly, Florida, and Paris for the time being. They can literally beat anybody else in the North American region when they're feeling it. But only being able to defeat the decent or average teams is not going to cut it, obviously. Unless the meta heavily favors the Valiant like we saw with Tracer Ashe, they will not be able to clear that hurdle. They'll never do it. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. The New York Excelsior. You are once again the second best in APAC. Coming into the Countdown Cup, I had my doubts about the NYXL. Given that Orisa was no longer banned, I thought a similar result of their loss in the Summer Showdown was going to play out. This game screamed Guangzhou Charge favored to me, but no, the NYXL proved that they're capable of defeating the Charge on a consistent basis again. That is huge for their confidence. For the last few months, you could kind of tell that their confidence was starting to waver. There was doubt due to all the losses that were starting to stack up because they're not really used to that. And now here they are only having one team left to conquer. And that brings me to my next point. The NYXL are a solid team for sure, but the Shanghai Dragons still outclass them. They got destroyed in yet another tournament game against them this year. When it comes to crunch time, they can't get it done against their nemesis. They are 0-4 against Shanghai this year, if I remember correctly. That could be a problem that later comes back to bite them. They better pray that somebody else can take the Dragons out for them. But you never know. If the NYXL can replicate last year's playoff success somehow, then maybe there's still hope for them. The Chengdu Hunters. You might be on the up and coming heading into the playoffs. Okay, so although Chengdu's run came to an end in the semis, I think we can all agree that there still might be a glimmer of hope for them. The Zarya dive comps are getting more and more popular, and they are far more comfortable on that than they are with double shield. The faster the pace, the more Chengdu's going to benefit. I'm a little worried about Jinmu with this Genji nerf though. His Sombra could use some work. His team is going to need him to step it up. But let me try and be positive about the Hunters for once. The future doesn't look too bad if you simply go off how they've played over the last month or so. An undefeated qualifying session and a tournament win? Sounds pretty good to me. And how about some of their individual players? One guy I have been extremely happy with as of late is Leave. The Chinese DPS phenom has finally hit his groove in the Overwatch League. He's finally playing at the level we all knew he was capable of before he joined. He doesn't seem so lost anymore. He found his place on this team. The man has been carrying. If he continues to output these types of performances, then the Hunters might be able to make an upset or two happen. The Florida Mayhem. You're a good team, but not a great one. Don't get me wrong, Florida fans. Your team is quite solid from top to bottom. I would say they definitely fall under the A tier category, but the fact of the matter remains is that they are still behind the likes of the Shock and Fusion. They aren't at the S tier level for me. They've shown they can be borderline S tier, but nothing definitive. Take the first half of the Shock game, for example. At that point in time, they genuinely were elite. They were S tier, but the Shock made the necessary adjustments and Florida didn't. The lack of adaptations lost them that game, and that is why they're still behind those types of teams, because they get deflated way too easily. When a high-pressure game against a good team is on the line and the battle is close, you can't afford to be crumbling. If the Mayhem ever are going to level up, then that is something they have to get better with. They have showcased incredible game planning and execution throughout all of 2020, but when it comes to a team like San Francisco, they can't string it together for the entire set. You gotta live and learn. Florida needs to look at what they did wrong and get back out there. Study the film and grind like there's no tomorrow. All it takes is one big win and they'll be right there. They're so close. The Paris Eternal. My opinion on you remains unchanged. As much as I'd love to say the Eternal had this extreme breakthrough that alters how I feel about them, I simply can't. I have nothing new to say about them, really. At their peak, they are a title contender, and generally speaking, they are arguably a top 5 team in the Overwatch League. At the end of the day, I think Philly were just the better team in that rematch. The Fusion had a better plan of attack, and Paris just couldn't really do anything about it. They got outplayed, that's all there really is to it. But that's okay. The meta may be changing, but Paris should remain strong. I am confident in them. They're working with so much talent, and they have some of the best coaching in the world. They might have shown early struggles without being able to utilize Genji, but they'll figure it out sooner or later. People often forget that Paris could be very deadly in double hit scan. Soon and Xe are no joke, and we've already seen it firsthand. I will admit though, I'm pretty curious to see how Paris utilize Sparkle moving forward. If the meta doesn't call for him, he might be spending a fair amount of time on the bench. Seeing how they could potentially do without him should be fun to watch. The Hangzhou Spark. Your finals appearance did not inspire confidence. So yeah, the Spark did make the finals, and they did get a few bonus wins out of it, but they had a fairly easy path to get there. It wasn't too difficult. All they had to do was get by Seoul and Chengdu, and that really isn't asking for much. Good on them for pulling it off nonetheless. I think they were solid in the Chengdu game in particular. I think Architect was really putting in the work. But their other matches during this tournament were not all that clean. Having to reverse sweep Seoul doesn't exactly leave you feeling good. Friendly reminder that the Dynasty have not won a game since the 4th of July. On the other hand, I can't really blame them for getting blasted by the Shanghai Dragons, although I will say it's still a little disappointing that they weren't able to put up much of a fight. The thing is though, I think the Spark should be thankful they weren't on the other side of the bracket. I think they would have gotten eliminated much earlier. The Spark still do have their work cut out for them. I would say they're probably number 4 at best in the APAC region currently. They have one game left on their regular season schedule in week 29. I'd like to see them head into the playoffs on a positive note. Give me something to look forward to. The Philadelphia Fusion. You are fun and frustrating at the same time. To all my kind and genuine Philly fans out there, I am so sorry you had to live through this once again. I don't even want to imagine what it's like to play second fiddle for the 4th time in your franchise's tournament history. I'm sure that frustration, sadness, and disappointment is something I could never begin to comprehend. You have my condolences though. I want you guys to do well. It breaks my heart to see the Fusion keep coming up short. It's painful to witness. I want nothing more than to see Philly win something. I think their loyal fans deserve it for sticking through them, even through all of the heartbreak and stressful games throughout the years. But you know, Philly fans, I am once again going to tell you to just keep your heads up here. I know it may be hard to keep believing at this point, but they really are right there. This is the best team you have ever had, and I don't think it's close. This is the only time in their existence where they've shown consistency. This team is world-class in every way. The grand finals is definitely still achievable. It's right there for the taking. They're getting closer to the shock. They just so happened to get outplayed in that finals game. And on the bright side, they were able to overcome Paris this time. They got the revenge, and they won with authority. Their Sombra dive really threw them off, and they were doing it without Carpe, who was unneeded for this type of strategy. I think Philly are still in a fine position to be a potential finalist. Overcoming the shock is going to be a challenge, but miracles are known to happen in the city of Philly. We've already seen the Fusion get there once before, so I know they can do it again, especially with this type of roster. The Shanghai Dragons. The Kings are back. If I were to describe Shanghai's tournament run with one word, then it would be dominant. How else could you even describe what they pulled off in this tournament? They made it look so easy. Not a single map was dropped. 2 sweeps in a row, and they imposed their wills on their opponents. They played some suffocating Overwatch. Most of the time it kind of felt like New York and Hangzhou had little to no breathing room. It was domination at its finest. It's hard to get much cleaner than what Shanghai was doing. They're back at number 1 in the region without a doubt now, and right now it doesn't feel close. Nobody in APAC is at their level currently, and that might not change anytime soon if the meta were to continue trending in this direction. The Shanghai Dragons are a danger to the Asian region and North America alike. They had a slight hiccup against the Charge, but now look as strong as ever again. There's very few teams in the league who could stand up to their might. Their tournament win was just so effortless, and that was the one thing I always knocked on Shanghai for in the past. Winning convincingly in the finals was the one thing they couldn't seem to get down, but no more of that. Taking them out is going to be a challenge. They are so loaded and versatile. So many playmakers inhabit that lineup of theirs, and any one of them can carry on any given day. Or multiple people at once for that matter. They are similar to the Shock, but not quite as deep roster-wise. If these two meet in the grand finals, it will surely be a showdown for the ages. And speak of the devil, the San Francisco Shock. You are still the most clutch team in the Overwatch League. Even though it's been nearly a year since the Shock won the championship and the team has gone through some major changes, this team still never fails to deliver. This team thrives under the pressure. It's honestly amazing to me. And every single time it feels like they all take turns stepping up to the plate. You've got Smurf and his primals, Rascal's blades, Striker landing massive pulse bombs, and Twilight making absurd plays on the Ana, and many other examples too for that matter. It's honestly unfair. Never in my life have I seen a team share responsibility so well. That is true teamwork. No matter who the opponent and no matter how hard they get knocked down, the Shock stay persistent and they always get back up swinging. They never back down from a challenge. They remind me so much of the New England Patriots dynasty for all my American football fans out there. The San Francisco Shock have that winner's mentality. They always find a way to get it done through precision and fully trusting in each other. The Shock are literally on the same trajectory as Shanghai. They won 2 different tournaments with a small hiccup in between. At this point, it feels like we're almost destined to see these two clash on the grandest stage of them all. September could not get here sooner. And there you go. That is one thing I learned about all 20 teams after watching the Countdown Cup. What did you guys learn from this event? Let me know down in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed the video, then it would mean a lot to me if you could hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you're new. You can also follow me on Twitter at ATPOverwatch, join the community Discord through the link in the description, and become a channel member to further support me. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.